In roller derby, holding space is an empowering, often intimidating act of strength and strategy for oneself and/or teammates. Holding Space, the podcast, clears the floor for conversations that touch upon race, class, identity, and privilege to amplify stories, build community, and make more connections in the skate world. This is Holding Space with Magical Realism. Welcome. Welcome to Hamel Talk. Here we go. We're about to break this down and debrief and process Hamilton, the musical turned film. So if y'all want to just start from introducing yourselves.
My name is Scarbie doll, and I am a hardcore stan. I have a little bit of a background in theater. It's in my blood. My grandmother taught theater at Temple. My uncle does theater in New York. I was in the drama club. I've been a fan of the art since I was 4 years old. I've been a fan of Hamilton for about 3 years. That's when I was introduced to it, and it's life. It's everything that you need and don't deserve, and that's it.
Yes. I'm Punkie Pie, and oh my goodness, I love Hamilton. I found out about it 4 years ago and was just obsessed with the soundtrack. I think it was my top album played on Spotify 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And me and my friends frequent this karaoke bar, and we've convinced the host that we go to download a bunch of the Hamilton soundtrack. So I'll go until we can sing it when that was still allowed, not pandemic times. But yeah, I love it so much. I was so excited for the film, and it did not disappoint.
All right. I guess that's me now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm Coco Butther, also known as Coco, also known as Carmen. And I am a huge Hamilton fan. I am a theater dork. I am a musical theater geek. I have my BFA in musical theater. I lived as a working actress for approximately 15 to 20 years in New York and LA and San Diego until I decided I wanted to have a real home and a car and live. And my initial introduction to Hamilton was just the Broadway cast recording because I could not get to New York to see it. I couldn't get anywhere and get tickets to afford it. And so I knew the music before I saw it. And I was terrified to see it because I was in a musical called Rent. And when I saw the movie version of Rent, I about barfed on myself. Yeah. So I was very, very nervous to see this adaptation. And I must say, I was pleasantly surprised.
Same.
So, oh wow. Okay. So all three of y'all went into it by listening to the soundtrack and then seeing it on film. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually saw. I was married to the original broadcast recording, and then I saw the Tonys when they performed it, and that was just that just sealed it. I was like, oh, I was like, this is so good. I wish I could see it in person, but I couldn't. So I just had to be married to the original soundtrack, and then also the Hamilton mixtapes.
Yeah,
so yeah. Both of those things I've been married to for years, and when the announcement came, when Lin-Manuel Miranda announced that it was going to be on Disney Plus, I couldn't form the words to express how excited I was, because I was excited to see it in the movie theaters next year. That's when it was supposed to come out in the theater,
but October, said, right?
You know yeah, of next year. And he was like, well, you know what? Because of Corona, let's go ahead and put it out for the people. Oh, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that, because I cried the first time The very first time I saw it, like from the beginning to the end, I was crying.
Are you serious?
The whole time.
Crying.
Yeah. All right. Crying, real fan tears, like how those Michael Jackson fans used to be. That was me over Hamilton. That was me about Hamilton. like legit tears, like legit theater girl, geek girl tears.
It's an embarrassing of riches because I live in New York City. I'm from New York City, but I didn't go to my first musical until till 2015 when I had a friend coming into town. We saw Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Hedwig!
Yeah.
Angry Inch.
Angry inch.
Yes. Thank you.
1 inch penis, 1 inch.
Right. So, thank you.
Sorry.
She's like, get it right.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So that right there tells you how versed I am in the musical theater world. And I remember the Public, it was originally at the Public. I remember hearing something here or there, and opening the window in my browser and about to buy tickets. And for some reason I was like, you know what? Nah, forget it. And I closed that window to Hamilton. And that was when they were $24. It was it was off Broadway. And then the next year I went to and then it sold out immediately. Word spread like wildfire, and it went to Broadway, and the rest is history. It just became this huge cultural touchstone. And cut to this time last year, I tried for they had, the app. Hamilton had an app, and where you would get lottery tickets. Yeah, and
I have the app.
And so I was like, whatever. No one's thinking about it that much anymore, or whatever. Just what does it if you set it up on your phone, it'll just notify you and remind you of the app, and you just don't think about it. Your girl got tickets last summer, Pride weekend, $10 ticket to second row, front and center.
How dare you?
Get off my phone.
Oh my God.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yo,
not take advantage of that.
I went. Oh, I was there. No, I was crying. I was by the intermission, I was Googling law programs. I wanted to go to law school. I was this is life changing. I was you know what? Why am I not?
Inspired you.
Oh, I was ready to be the next Sonia Sotomayor. I was in there.
That's awesome.
No, I mean, I did it. Nothing came of it. I closed my window, my browser window, my phone. I kept watching it. But that's how much of an impact. I swear, my jaw was on the ground the entire time. It wasn't no one of the original cast. I mean, I recognize one or two of the ensemble dancers in some of the parts. There's this white guy, short blonde hair, dirty blonde hair, and on the film, he's one of the ensemble dancers. And when I went, he was Philip. He had become the Philip John Lawrence character.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think I was just looking, I was mentioning that I just saw this undefeated Hamilton cast talk, and it looks like one of the understudies became Lafayette. So I love that. It was just it seemed it was a progression that people kept, they promoted from within, it would seem. And then I love this so much. I told my best friend about it. We were planning this summer trip. We bought tickets to see it in London. We saw it. We went on the West End. We got on the left flank, second row again. We paid $100 per ticket, and it was dope. It was so interesting to be. I felt I was watching it with an away team, because you're in London. So I felt all the British jokes were hitting different for people. It was really funny and fun.
I would be curious about how a British audience how they would take it, and how what their take would be on it.
Or the Queen. Can you imagine the Queen?
Yeah.
That's her direct descendant or something.
Her descendant, yeah. Oh God, I love I love them so
So
much.
stiff. And I don't know. So it's been really interesting to watch. So now like watching it with Lin-Manuel, and I'm like, this is my third Hamilton, and this is the Hamilton that everyone knows.
That you were supposed to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That
it's
you
been
were
really
originally
weird
supposed
and
to see.
interesting. You know who was my first Hamilton? The one that I saw here in New York. I don't know if y'all got to the beach episode of Pose season 2. If not, like, spoiler. Okay, well, like the
Always.
love interest, the person who,
Blancas?
yes, in that episode, he was Hamilton.
He's so
Really?
cute.
He
I
was
did not know that.
amazing. Yeah,
He's so
See?
cute.
No way. He's adorable.
he was
And he
dope.
sings.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's dope.
and a tall drink of water, like a
Yeah,
good
he's
6'4".
gorgeous.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh,
Well,
I love
hello.
that.
And yeah, and it's interesting. Like in England, like see them all like do like English accent or like not English, American accents when doing it, you know.
And then sometimes the British accent kind of creeps out a little bit sometimes, right? A little bit. It creeps out a little bit.
A little tinge, a little here. Yeah, it's like it's like the reverse of like, you know, like Green Day, like Billy Joe sings in like a British accent or something.
Yeah.
But, like he speaks
the
in
reverse.
like regular California. It's like that, but reverse.
That is so funny that you've seen it. Like, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to just be a hater for a second because
Yeah, definitely.
there's some of us are like hardcore musical theater dork geeks. And like you saw it twice, boo, like twice. And you were like, maybe I kind of want to see musical theater. Like, I'm a little jelly. Like,
NPD.
I'm
I'm a hater.
NPD.
I'm a little hater because I had a
NPD.
teammate who was like, oh, my sister's selling Hamilton tickets for when it's here in LA. And I was like, it was at the Pantages, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, my sister has tickets. And I was like, oh my God. The first, I immediately text her. I was like, I'm the one who's buying those tickets. And she's like, oh, awesome. Let me put you in touch with my sister. So then the sister DMs me and she sends me where the tickets are. And it's like a wall on the back of my head. So like it was the last row.
Oh no.
It was the very last row. And I remember feeling like, and you know, she wasn't trying to price gouge me or anything. She was being very, very sweet. But I remember initially my feeling was like, I've been waiting so long to see this show. I cannot see it from the very, very last row.
See it right.
I got to see it right. I had to see it, you know. And that's the difference between like LA and, you know, being in New York. You know, when New York, you go to TKTS and get tickets, you know, it's just so much more accessible. So
it is and it isn't, because I don't want to like, you know, it's very interesting because I think that part of like the critiques and criticism that people online have given the Hamilton film speaks to the inaccessibility. Like a lot of people from like the outer boroughs in New York City are just super intimidated about the musical scenes, and like it's just that's what white people do or something, you know what I mean? Like it's just another world.
You know what, the funny thing about that is that the tickets for Hamilton are priced around the same thing as any other show. It's just that it was so popular, you know, and the word was out. It was like, oh, why it's so expensive? It's Broadway,
but the StubHub of it all, though, like a lot of people,
you know, it's
they
not
did the
community
scalping.
theater. It's not Shakespeare in the Park. This is Broadway. This is the tip. This is the tippy. This is the elite top of this art form. It's not going to be.
And it's also like avant-garde.
Okay.
It's also
exactly
like no one has even like when you see the critics and everyone like their minds are blown. Like it is at the highest of the form, right? And
it was like our generation's like Cats or Venn, or it was that huge.
Yeah,
you know, the impact, the cultural impact that it had. Even the people who had never seen it, people like me, I haven't seen it on stage. I had tickets, you know, to go see it in June, but Corona, I couldn't go. Corona. So I finally got tickets to go see this show live, and I can't see it because of COVID. So I'm especially hating on you, Magic, because you've seen it repeatedly.
Well,
Yeah.
I saw it because I saw it because I would have seen it sooner, but it speaks to that accessibility. Like I work for a community nonprofit. I ain't got Hamilton bucks, like if I was going to see it, it was going to be for $10 or for nothing, or I'm not going to see it. I was see it in my living room like everyone else. But when I saw it, it was just kind of like, I knew that I had to see it, but I wasn't like a diehard like that either. I don't know.
But you know what? Lin-Manuel Miranda even said it. He said another reason why he decided to put it out like this is because people were using it as like a talking point, as an elitist talking point. Like, I've seen it live, or I've seen the original Broadway cast. Well, guess what? It's on Disney Plus, and now everybody's seen the original Broadway cast.
I love that.
Like,
take it right out of their hands. Yeah.
Right. He was like, this is my making the art accessible to everyone. It shouldn't only be for the people who can afford it.
Not to mention, he did it. He would do a lot of things. Like they used to have like, they would do like the performances, I feel like at lunchtime outside of the theater for people waiting online. Like he did his best. Yeah. The mixtape. When have you heard of a musical like theater show releasing on mixtape? Like
never.
No, he really did try to like bring it and popularize it.
The Cats mixtape. The rap mixtape.
Only if it was like only if it would have been like performed with actual cats. Like
oh my god. Oh my god. I'm not a Cats fan. I'm not a Cats fan, period. That's just me. But
same. It just didn't do it for me.
It didn't do it for me. I don't like Andrew Lloyd Webber, period. But I don't like any of that mess. Like real. But
y'all, like, what surprised you about the film? And about having like it basically a sight unseen, because I remember the first time I see it. Let me not flex like that, but like
you
when I saw it, it was just like the plot holes that I filled in my head, like how I feel like I made like a separate individual plot story for this that was very different from what I actually ended up seeing in the show, and not in a bad way, but it's really interesting how your mind plays tricks on you somehow, like it. And I think I've heard that from people about how like they were like, wait a minute, how dare he, or like just I don't know. What was your surprise? Punkie, I'm asking you first.
Oh man, I don't know that I necessarily had any surprises because I had researched it a lot. So like a lot of the things that had been saved that like weren't included in the cast recording or like choreography related, I kind of had an idea about, but I was like waiting to see the Satisfied scene because that song, like that was my first favorite song. My favorite song changes because like they're so good, but that was my first favorite. And I remember like when I listened to it for the first time and you get to the rewind part, initially, and I was just like, oh my god, what's about to go down?
Yes.
And then that song is just like so fucking beautiful and heartbreaking, and then finally getting to see it, like I've listened and sung this song, like I know every single word, and
all in the car,
at the karaoke bringing down the house, they'd like to the little rap. That's my favorite.
And anyway. I love the Miguel Queen Latifah version on the mixtape. Oh my goodness. And I feel like he probably formulated Angelica's part around like a Queen Latifah, don't y'all think? Or because I know he's done that. Like Eminem is very clearly, or Lafayette is very clearly Eminem. Hercules Mulligan is Busta inspired, I should say. He has a lot of Hamilton himself is a lot of very B.I.G. Jay-Z-ish ness, Mobb Deep,
Big Pun,
right? Even Furious 5. What was the even sometimes I wonder when I bring him in the thunder. Like it's very.
Why you are so young. Oh my god.
What,
baby? You're so young. You don't even know the lyrics. I'm so bad at you. You're so young.
No, I'm trying to do. I'm doing like half lyric, like half Hamilton lyric, half.
Putting them together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Today, you know what blew my mind? Because every day this play, like it just takes over your brain, and you keep mulling it over like a fucking Rubik cube. But like today, the proximity of of I Dream of Jeannie and my shot, or not my shot, or Get Up. What was it? Rise Up. Y'all hear it? Like it's rise up when you're living on your knees and you rise up.
Rise up.
Oh,
Yeah.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah, it's. And then when she's like, I am so into you, I am so into you. It's very SWV. Like the whole trio of the Schuyler sisters feels very SWV to me.
But doesn't that totally make sense with Lin-Manuel? First of all, where he was raised.
He's in our generation.
He's my baby. He's my age. So
he's our generation.
He's our generation. But I'm saying, I think he was born in 79, 70.
No, I think he and I are the same age. I think he was born in
1980. Oh, okay. Oh, is he a baby of the 80s? So if he's like learning who all the
literally like splitting hairs, like
right? It's still the same generation. But what I'm saying is like a child born in 85 or 89 is not the same child that would remember the Boogie Down Bronx, who would remember the start of hip hop. Right. They would not have remembered it because they're not of an age that they would have experienced it at that, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So when I think about Lin-Manuel and I think about his influence, where he was born, where he was raised, and it's the start of hip hop, is where rap started. And then he has all of these different influences. I mean, I would think it seemed like every single character had some kind of voice that's what surprised me. When you talk about the thing that's surprising, it sounded like I knew each one of them. I remembered something. They all sounded like someone I knew or I listened to. Very reminiscent. And like you said, like Busta. Well, like you're saying, like Busta Rhymes, like Mulligan. I mean, I'm thinking about where did I know that? But I didn't even put those two together until she just said, like, yeah, Hercules is kind of Busta. Like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you think about definitely Eminem, you can hear the cadence. I mean, that quick, rapid fire kind of rapping is also Busta, because he does that as well. That kind of, that kind of rap.
but also like the nasally, like, when he does like the Slim Shady, like, that doesn't often. Like, it's very also Eminem-y.
It is.
What about you, TJ? Or Scarbie, what surprised you when you dried up the tears or like wiped away the tears?
You know what? I don't know that there was anything specifically that surprised me, because this is something that I basically had immersed myself into this fandom for several years. So the only thing I would say that touched me, it didn't just surprise me, is that Lauren's solo when when Eliza's reading the letter from Lawrence's father that he passed away, that's not on the soundtrack that we listened to. That's a part that's not in there. So I was expecting that, because I had read about all of it. You know, I have the book that has all the script and everything because I'm a fan, but I hadn't heard it. But that was what touched me the most, is seeing that part, and that part being new, because nothing at this point had been new to me with regards to this show. So having seen that finally, and having something new that had been introduced me because I had finally seen it live, that was awesome to me. That was a surprise, and it was a welcome surprise. And I was glad to finally have something maybe new that I hadn't touched yet, because I touched every other part of this play.
And if you think about it, it's such a treat and so nice to have something that you haven't seen. Like, everything goes so viral in this day and age, and everyone sees everything. And, you know, sometimes you don't want to see something and you keep seeing it bombarded in your face through social media, that having something that you've only heard and kind of in your mind's eye created a image to it, and then having the film is so dope. I love that about it. I also love I think what surprised me was just the different nuances that every Blur or every Hamilton brings to the role. Like, I loved how subtly and like relatable, how subtle and relatable Odom is, or you know, Burr.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. That was what was surprising, because when you listen to it, it's so easy to make him the villain. It's so easy to cheer against him.
Like a mustache twirling villain. And he's
totally one-dimensional. It's weird, because it's like one-dimensional villain. He's so bad. But then when you watch it, it's like, shit, man, no, like, he wasn't bad. Right. And then I mean, I don't know how we're talking about this. Like, I don't want to give spoilers away. We're okay with that, right?
Yeah.
So like the way they did the whole ending when in the scene where their duel, I remember thinking so easily in my head, I made him such a jerk and such a villain. And then the way they staged it, I hadn't imagined it. And I felt awful for him. I felt awful because the way Odom played it, but then also just the way they had, I loved the turntable and the turntable in the center of the, and you got to see kind of it rotated from looking at Hamilton to looking at it from Burr's perspective. And he was so sympathetic. And it was like he was devastated.
We've been
immediately. We all have.
We've been, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to speak for y'all, but I feel like I've been a Burr more than I've been a Hamilton.
Yeah.
You know? Or I've been an Angelica more than I've been a Pippa, than I've been an Eliza.
And Peggy.
Yeah.
Peggy.
Yeah, and Peggy.
And Peggy.
Which, that's speaking of, like, I was like, that must be the cushiest job ever until I realized that she is the woman. She's the other woman.
She's the sexy girl. The sexy.
Yes.
Beautiful song.
The woman
and
in red.
I wish we should have had more chances to sing because that girl's voice is, she's another
beautiful.
Vocal acrobat.
Yeah. Wasn't it surprising because she went from that Peggy, baby, sister Peggy voice.
Yeah.
And then it dropped this octave, you know, this is really this round, really rich sound. I was amazed. Yes. Amazed by her voice.
Who else were standout actors in your...
Of course, we're going to talk about Daveed Diggs. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about Daveed Diggs because he is everything in this world. Like
so much swag.
He earned that Tony.
He
earned it.
Amazing.
He earned that Tony. He is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest rap on Broadway.
Facts.
Well, Guns and Ships.
But yeah,
and
I believe it.
Guns and Ships. The what's the other one? Right Hand Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm
that,
like,
the athleticism.
I learned that.
The athleticism, the control that it takes to like control your lungs and have the air to be able to do that while jumping around and dancing
and dance at the same time. Yeah,
incredible. That's incredible.
I loved Anthony Ramos. I always thought he was not cute because before seeing the movie, I was like, he's not cute at all because I saw him. He was in She's Gotta Have It, Spike Lee's.
Yes. But he played like Mars or something. Like
he played Mars.
Nerdy.
So he was supposed to be nerdy and ugly. And I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling it for him. And then as soon as he was on stage, I was like, oh, Lorenzo, wait though.
That was like one of my first tweets. I was like, Daveed Diggs and Anthony Ramos are so beautiful.
They are so beautiful. And the freckles like totally went from being nerdy and ugly to, oh my gosh, these freckles though. He was so, so cute.
Him to me was what I identified the most with in the film. And in terms of like the New Yorkness about this play, like the that's what I'm talking about, or like the it's showtime, like those are such clutch New York sayings, and like the mannerisms, the hairstyle. That kid is from Bushwick. Like I looked him up on IMDb or Ricky or whatever, and he he personifies like what outer borough like Latino young guys are, like that swagger, all of them. And that was just like, there's like this subtle undertone of like love for that uptown and like outer borough NYC like life and culture, the Caribbean, the diasporic nature of it, and the sounds. Like it's just, he even has like a song where he's like, New York is the best in the summertime, and it's so true. Like it's facts. Like this is someone who wrote this like was born and raised here, it felt. And I love that about this play. But yeah, what were your qualms with it?
I think at some point, I think it might have been Lin-Manuel Miranda. At some point, sometimes I feel like he might have been overacting. But then I remember this is theater, and you have to reach the person that's in the far back with your expressions and your manners. And so, of course, it's going to be big. It's going to be a little bit extra. So I gave him a pass for that. But if it had been just a movie and he were performing like that, I'm like, why is he so extra? This is a movie. This is not Broadway. But again, that's the art. So it's supposed to be huge. It's supposed to be ornate and, you know.
You bring up a good point, because I feel like that's the conflict between the theater and the film, right? Like you don't typically get to, like I felt like the film was very deliberate in pointing out what you should be looking at. Whereas when you're in the theater at a musical, you're like looking all over. Your eye is like trying to take everything in, absorb everything. And so that's really interesting. What about the rest of y'all?
That's the part that I didn't like. When you say it that way, I think, you know, when you're in a Broadway show and you're watching, the director is sort of telling you where to look, with lighting or with sound, and they're sort of directing where you look, but you still have the opportunity to see everything and to make your own kind of, well, I'm really interested in what's happening in this part of the play. You get to see these small nuances. When I was doing what I was doing, there was this one little transaction as the bag lady that I always would have with Mark underneath one of the stage props. And it was just something he and I did every night, where he's selling me I'm trying to sell him a little bag of weed and dope and blah, blah, blah. But it was this thing that he and I had every night. And it made the richness of the show, because there was these individual little things happening, right? But when they're directing it, that's the hard part, because I couldn't see everything. Yeah. I'm seeing what they wanted me to see. You know what I mean?
I felt that dilemma too, because like, it on one hand was so cool to be able to see the like close-ups during the solos and like get to like really be in that emotion. But I was so excited to be able to see the choreography of this show. And so like those moments where it's only focused on one person, I'm just like, but what's happening everywhere else? Because it's such a complex show. And I've been like reading about all of the like ensemble members too, and how they all are very intentional and purposeful in their movements and like interactions and stuff. So I want to be able to take all of that in. So yeah, I definitely agree there.
You know, but on the other hand, like, I feel like that's one thing that, to his credit, like Lin-Manuel, he's very, like, he's very charismatic. Like his eyes are so expressive. I think that, I don't know that would have been as noticeable to me had I not had all those like close-ups on him, you know? Like when he's crying, when he's singing the song to his son, or, you know, then they both are like, oh, it's just like, oh my goodness, let me go like have 1 million children now. Like, it's just, you know, and like or like when they were like, when he was like, he named her Tomcat after me. It's true. Like, it's just like the little, like the subtleties, the little quirks I loved about it. Oh, you know what my qualm was the like throwaway lines to like slavery that appear every now and again. Like, Sally, be a dear, come here. Like the Thomas Jefferson. I was like, ugh. Like, can we not like take Sally Hemings' name out of your mouth? Like, you know,
for all time.
Like, bad enough that he's like, Thomas Jefferson is played by the most like charismatic, you know, actor in the entire play, but like, can we not? And like, and they were like they were just passing mentions to like racism that felt very like crowbarred in, not racism, slavery. And I just, it was like, for what? Like, I wish it hadn't. Or like when the women were like, we'll be included in the sequel. It's like, no.
No, you aren't.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Not for another 200 years, sweetie. Pipe down.
Seriously. So, and it felt like.
Did you feel like he felt like he had to wedge those in, because he knew, I mean, Lynn has to know that this history is super, super complicated. And so I think, I mean, that was the one other issue that I had with it, where they say something about, Hamilton says something to him about, well, we know who's doing the work, you know?
Yeah.
And because you have the free labor. But it's like, that's like such a one-off, just one little, you know, line. It wasn't enough for it to matter one way or another, but it was almost like he included it to make Hamilton more sympathetic.
More woke.
Does that make sense? More woke, when he wasn't as woke as we may all like to have thought.
Wasn't. He was for manumission, which was, you know,
he was a complete opportunist. His whole thing was about making sure that he took the time to create his legacy, because he absolutely came from nothing. And his whole goal was to create a name for himself that will outlive him and to make sure that he writes his name in history. So everything that he did was to satisfy that goal. So he was like, okay, so I'm gonna align myself whoever I need to align myself with. I'm gonna go to war. I'm gonna write letters for George Washington. I'm gonna do what I have to do because guess what? I've come from nothing and I don't have much time. Because he has this whole thing with time, even in my shot when he was like, see, I never thought I'd live past 20 where I come from, some get half as many. So that's what his motivation. That's what's moving him.
And that's so hip hop when you think about it.
Exactly right. He's like, I don't have much time to leave my mark. Let me go ahead and do what I got to do now. That's why I write like I'm running out of time because that's what basically that's how I feel.
Yeah.
So all of his stuff is very calculated. So he says things and does things because he has an end goal, an end agenda. And if you're in his way, then you're just gonna get run over, Aaron Burr, because I don't have much time.
Right.
That's my take on it anyway.
And Aaron was the opposite. Aaron was the wait for it guy, right?
Yeah. The thing is,
and there's a time and place for both of them, right?
Right, because they were both orphans. They were different sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. Aaron Burr was an orphan who inherited a lot of money. Hamilton was an orphan who came from absolutely nothing. So they're both coming into this situation the same but different. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, I mean, I'm not that in much of a rush. Aaron Burr is like, it's not that, I'll stand by, I'll wait for it. Hamilton's like, I'm not going to be here for very long, so I have a lot to do. So, and then that's where I think a lot of his conflict came from, because he was like, listen, why are you just standing around? We got stuff to do. We don't have time. And Aaron Burr's like, yeah, we do. We got plenty of time. Yes. I don't get you.
If we think about Hamilton's life and his life path, it follows the arc of hip hop too. If you think about hip hop being an art form with roots in the Caribbean and coming up through New York, and then, taking on a life of its own. Exactly. Or Obama. Another people often bring up the point that this was written squarely in the middle of the Obama administration, and how it has a very sort of post-racial, remember that kind of glean to it, and then I was just watching this Undefeated special, and he's talking about his whole inspiration was like America Then with America Now, meaning America Then played by America Now, the people of color being the present and future, acting as if the now wasn't there then. We've always been
right here. Like we didn't exist back then. We just arrived a few years ago.
No. He acted like we just jumped in. I don't know,
I get that phrase is complex, because we've always been here. They're just, our stories aren't as fun to tell in that time period in most
or let me just say one more thing, or they're like the immigrants, we get the job done, all of them were immigrants, natives.
Everybody.
Where were the natives? And the natives weren't the only immigrants, technically, if you were born there, you were still an immigrant. Unless you were native, unless you were an indigenous person at that time, you weren't trying to hear about no independence or or settling or creating nation building. They had their nations.
Y'all stumbled on here. We were good until y'all got here.
I'm saying
that's enough stuff.
But you were saying, I'm sorry, Punkie. I cut you off.
No, it's okay. Just I don't know. I feel like watching it though, I totally bought into the representation of it. I was seeing Angelica. I was just like, oh my God, look at all of this melanin on the screen. Mm-hmm. And that was totally a part of what caught me in the moment. Because I cried as soon as I sat on the couch, press play, I was like, it's happening. And it was so cool. I saw this sweet video of this little Asian American girl who was watching this show with her family, and when Eliza comes on stage, she's like, it's me, and I just bawl every time I see it, because it's just so sweet. And I think of kids now that are coming up in Broadway and getting to see this show, and what that means for them is huge.
Absolutely.
It's huge. The thing that's so sad is I guess the only coming up as an actor, and especially in America, and especially the time that I came up, you got the door shut in your face often because you didn't look like the part, and the part never looked like you. And when I was in college, I remember one of my professors telling me, Carmen, you're not going to hit your sweet spot for another 20 to 30 years. And I said, well, what does that mean? And he's like, well, you're young and you're Black, but you've got a huge voice. And so you're going to play, you know, the mamas. And you're going to play those, the, you know, when you look at ragtime and there's a none at all Cole House, and you're going to play those people. You're not going to play Sarah. You're going to play, you know, the big ladies, and they don't want those. Correct. And I remember thinking in my life, like, well, shoot, I have to wait 20 to 30 years to get the kind of work that will sustain a career. And then watching Hamilton, I thought, see, they didn't have to wait. They never had to wait. It was always a choice.
Lin-Manuel Miranda was very deliberate when he did In the Heights. He was very deliberate when he did Hamilton. He said, if I want to be in this industry, I'm not going to be able to be in anything but West Side Story or what have you. I'm going to have to write the roles that I can be in, and then I can have the control over who plays these roles so we can get more representation. He was very deliberate.
Scarbie, we had a Virgo mind meld moment because I was literally about to say that same point. He literally had to write the role for himself. Otherwise, he never would have been casted as a lead in this play had he not written it.
Yeah, I disagree. I think this play written by any other person, they would have been happy to have cast everyone as white. And what I'm saying is, and so that's what I'm saying, that back when they was telling Black people they could only play this role, they always the whole cast. I mean, the whole cast of Cats could have been Black. The whole cast of Phantom on the Opera could have been Latinx. They could have always done it, but because it was his show, he created it. He was able to cast it as he wanted. And that was the best part of watching this.
But you know what else? I agree with you, but there's also the added layer of the music and the dance. Like that only could have been written by a person of color, I feel.
No way. He said, do you think a bunch of white guys could have done Hamilton? No way. Get real. Yeah. Not gonna happen. It would not have had nearly the impact on.
And I feel like that's part of the distaste for people and the inaccessibility to musical theater. Like they just think of it as like jazz hands and ragtime, and you know what I mean. Like they don't really see anything for them.
Jazz hands. I'm gonna kick you so hard.
I love jazz hands.
Facts. Like that's what I think of.
And I was a cheerleader too, so I'm all about the jazz hands.
It's true. Like kickball chain, like Liza, like that's not that's
and grapevine.
Exactly. And when they do fucking like do anything Latinx representation, they get it wrong. Like, why the hell is a play about Puerto Ricans include mariachi music? America,
it's not the same thing.
America, West Side Story, that's mariachi. That has nothing to do with Puerto Ricans, just so you know. But so yeah. So it literally had to come from his pen, and for us to find ourselves and see ourselves the way that we deserve to be seen. And I feel like some people are complaining about it. They're like, there's hip hop, this is whack or whatever. This dude is like in his 40s. He's not about to do some trap. Like what do you expect?
Trap musical.
I'm saying, and that should also
occur. We can do trap music, the musical. Get T.I. to write it.
I feel like he's opened the portal for the people coming up who's like inspired by him and want to create the next Hamiltons of their time. You know, I thought that.
I think he was out. I mean, I'm biased, of course, but I think Lynn was also inspired by Jonathan Larson. You know, Jonathan Larson writes a play that's just about gay, queer, trans people of color, and
he always cites him as an influence.
Yeah,
even in the song in the Hamilton mixtape, there's a song called "I Write My Way Out," and he has a line like he was like, "I'm running out like Jonathan Larson's rent check." Like he always alludes to
I remember that.
influences.
Yeah,
so he's had that.
You can see that.
It's very referential.
He is, and he gives, and it's reverence, and it's like, you know, he gives. There's a certain respect that he gives, but like, you know, you think about, he wrote this for all these people of color, but people have been doing that forever. What was it about Hamilton? And and this is my theory. What was it about Hamilton that made it different? You know, because I mean, Dreamgirls was also written mostly for people of color, right? Mm-hmm. Did it do the same thing that Hamilton did? Rent, all the characters except two white dudes are people of color or trans or queer. and it did this crazy it also was a phenomenon. I don't know what is the difference between Hamilton and any of those other plays that have made it so much better.
I think the difference is that it is reminiscent, and it reminds people of something that they love. It reminds you of the hip hop that you grew up with. It reminds you of the songs, or even like things like "I am the AL, EX, A&D." Like you remember that from Vicky.
I love that.
So all those things are everything is so reminiscent. It gives you a sense of familiarity, and familiarity breeds comfort. So you find comfort in that. And that's why. And that's my theory.
Nostalgia.
That's the theory. That's the reason why I feel like Hamilton has become such a phenomenon, because there's familiarity behind it, and we find comfort in that.
We were due too. I don't think that we've had a play in a while like that.
We have. I think it's also the familiarity, like you're saying, Scarbie, about this story. This story is something that, and just put it out there. White America says this is our story, right? This is an American story. This belongs to us. This is American history. And so there's so much more passion and care and concern over this story and how it's portrayed. Whereas maybe Rent, I don't know no druggies. I don't know nobody with HIV or AIDS. I don't know anybody who's queer. This story is not my story per se. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Hamilton is, quote unquote, our story, America's story. And I feel like people put so much more weight into it because they felt that it was portraying American history. And Lynn kind of put a little switcheroo on him. He slid some color up in there.
Some soul into it.
Put
Right.
Some Old Bay seasoning. Some adobo.
He did put some spice on it. Some adobo, some Old Bay, some Lowry's. He put a little tahini on there. He hooked it up.
But wait, y'all. But like again, I got, as you're talking, Coco, I have to come back to the Obamas and the Obama administration. And it's like I feel like it's all wrapped in that same sort of idealism and like rethinking America's story with like the first Black family in the White House. Doesn't it feel like it has that sort of like crisp, shiny idealism to it, like that also that rethinking of our revolutionary ideas?
I heard you say you was about to say kumbaya. I heard you.
Let me read Jumpy McGee's quotes. I asked her for some Hamill thoughts since she couldn't be here with us.
Oh, Jumpy.
And she said, I think where I've struggled is the appreciation for the art piece that it is and the mass consumption who misses the point. They're thinking just like, dude, it's rapping history, ! Hardly recognizing the irony of a POC cast playing out the whitewashed founding of our country and also the continued invisibility of indigenous peoples. So...
yeah, they were completely written out. There was no mention at all of indigenous people at all. And that's disconcerting because we're talking about erasure now of a whole group of people who were here already. Okay, your war landed on land that was already occupied, but they weren't written in this. They weren't written in this art piece. But in his defense, I will say this is an art piece. It's not a history lesson. If you're looking at a Broadway musical for a history lesson, you've already lost because this is for entertainment with smacks of, history. The primary goal is to present an art piece.
And the power and privilege of history, of who gets to write the history that's shown on Broadway.
Exactly right.
It's not everyone.
Who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
Right. And also just like the idea that this is his second, piece, he wasn't going to get a Hamilton sort of response from his as a starting starting out at play, right, and what have you. Like this is someone who already had a platform, who was already trusted, who had the contacts in the industry that was able to bring this about too, right? And I think in the middle of it, was it after Hamilton that Lin-Manuel won the Genius Grant, or was it before? But, he was already a known name. He's already a very known quantity.
You know what? I take that back. It might have been after In the Heights, because In the Heights won all those Tonys too. It was like a Broadway darling,
another groundbreaking piece. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, before Hamilton was even a finished show, he performed like what we know now as like Alexander Hamilton
Hmm.
at the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did.
So like he was in there, you know. So
I feel
people were
like
so
at the
Also, he was in
Kennedy
the high school.
Center or something. Like he was. Like,
Yeah, he was doing the White House Poetry Slam, and when he did the introduction, he said, "I'm gonna do a piece I've been working on, and it's about the most hip hop dude, I think, of all time, first Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton," and everybody started laughing, and he was like, "You laugh now," and now look at now, how many years later, we're talking
Yeah.
about the whole piece now, not just he built the whole show around that song, and I remember seeing it on YouTube
yeah.
and being like, wow, that's pretty dope. And then sort of forgetting about it because it took him a whole, 6 years to finish it. So it was out of my head by the time it came out. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, I remember that guy he was at the Obamas. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I definitely remember that after, but it was one of those things that I saw and then it left because it took him 6 years to finish the whole piece, the whole Hamilton piece.
And he was like, he was like lyricist, playwright, like he did all of the things.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
He pulled the Tyler
You know,
Perry.
it's funny. I was thinking about what Jumpy just said. You know how Jumpy is talking about how they like Jumpy said they wrote everyone, like all the indigenous people out of it, or they just didn't write them into it, and how the people who like appreciate it the most or who love Hamilton the most kind of miss the point of it. I was just thinking about, for, POC queer women on a chat talking about how we were working so hard to get to try to see this show and how important that was. And then I think about, I'm not sounding like a jerk. I think about all my white friends. Oh, we saw it 12 times. We saw it,
but
right?
you're not even a fan.
You're not even a fan, but it became, why? Because it became a status symbol. The show in and of itself became a commodity and a way of showing your status, which is so crazy that in and of itself, it turned upon itself to be like, okay, well, the Karens and Chads of the world have taken their 6-year-olds to see this play 4 or 5 times, and they've flown all over the world to do this, and it absolutely shows a certain amount of status, and it just kind of is totally against what the whole thing was about, but it's so ironic.
This is why he made it, put it out for everybody.
Right.
And he was like, well, guess what? Not everybody's seen the original Broadway cast, because that was the thing. Like, I've seen the original Broadway.
Well, he said in this like special that like that it's kind of like a restaurant that they serve this play to like 1,300 people each night for like 5 years.
Yeah.
But more people are going to see it on the July 3rd, 4th, and 5th than did in those 5 years of 1,300 people each night combined. Like that's the power of cinema, right? And film and accessibility to film, and I think that's a net positive, because also think about all the opportunities of like film and TV that the actors in Hamilton are going to have now. The people
and they
that
have
never
been, they're everywhere.
Yeah,
I see them all on SVU and in movies and all types of stuff. David Diggs. I'm gonna talk about him again because I love him. He was great. He does TV. He's been in SVU. He was on the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. He's done movies. He was in Wonder. And he has his own rap career, and he does. He's a Tony Award winner, so he's just an all-around, well-rounded artist. He's an all-around artist, and I just stand for him so hard. I just love him. I love his whole life. I'm here for him. His whole life.
We have writers, musicians, and activists on this call. What did y'all take from it, from those, like with those hats on?
I think there are just like so many good nuggets of like protest songs within Hamilton. It's beautiful. Like I love listening to Yorktown, and just like when the chorus comes in and it's like the world turned upside down, and just like having that like hope for change and like getting to see it, and like I don't know, I just kind of like hope that we get to have that moment now. with this like upcoming election. Like, let's turn it back up or like right side up,
Yes.
rather.
History having its eyes on you. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, I love Yorktown. The violins take me out every single time. I get chills all over. After Hercules Mulligan's rap, Hercules Mulligan, I need no introduction. That whole part, like,
I
I'm like,
love that so much.
I love it, love it. From an activist standpoint, again, there are lots of fantastic names, and you see in the protests now on signs things like "History has its eyes on you," or things of that nature, or "Rise up," or "This is not a moment, it's a movement." All those
Yeah.
sort of things that came from the show are actively being projected in actual protests right now, and I think that's amazing as well. I'm just, I'm all about representation primarily and above all. And what this play has done for representation and access, not just representation, but having the access to actually see it and see yourself on a stage, a Broadway play about the founding fathers, people who look like me, it's monumental. It's monumental. So yeah, I'm gonna stand, regardless. But yeah, from an activist standpoint and from a person who's created safe spaces, from that point of view, this is everything that it lives up to be to me. It lives up to the hype. Absolutely, it does.
Carmen, Coco.
I guess what I really take from it, and as an actress, I would say the same thing, that the representation is outstanding. It's outlandish that, a young girl who may be going out to try out or audition for a show right now doesn't necessarily have to only audition for the big black girl or the brown girl in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And this gives so many different people the opportunity to say, I can prove to you that I can be this person, that I can do this work. And so as an actress, I love that. As an activist, I'm still angry. I stay pretty angry because I do feel like people, like most things, like the Bible, like any other piece of history, they look at it and they look to it to give them ideas about what is real and what is true. And for people to come from the musical and get from it that Hamilton was like an abolitionist or something like that, that makes me a little bit upset. That makes me a little upset. You and I, the four of us, know that because we're educated and we want to know that kind of information. But I think just general Joe public maybe doesn't want to know that information. They just see this as another hailing of a great leader within America. So that takes me off a little bit. But I also stand for it, because without it, I think a lot of people, like we said, I came from listening to the lyrics. And so I listened to it before I saw it. And you have to listen to these words so carefully. And if you listen to these words so carefully, or as many of my friends did, they put on the subtitles when they watched the movie. This is what we are living. We are living this now. And to see these, like, the back deals where you see Jefferson, you see these people go into okay, let's have this negotiation. That's truly what happens in this world. The Republicans and Democrats do not necessarily fight against one another. They are having these conversations off camera, behind the doors. They're having these talks to decide what they're willing to concede, what they're willing to give up, and what they're willing to compromise in order to get what they want. And the lyrics of this show say all of that, but people have to pay attention and see it. Yes.
How power functions. Punkie, did you want to add, or are you good with your answer?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. So I wanted to also, I definitely, the writer in me, like, found so much inspiration in writing my way out, and just being a girl from the Bronx and trying to make it in writing and being a writer and trying to find that muse and inspiration, and seeing a Latino helm this production was something that was just mind-blowing to me. I love just the serendipity of it dropping right now in the midst of the BLM movement, and how, like, it was also a needed reminder about these ideals that we're we've always espoused and we've always tried, but always fallen short of too, in the play as well as in history, I think. But I also feel like this play is like, I think of it as like a living being, in that its flaws are also part of its beauty. Like people that try to pick it apart, no, that's not what this is for. And I agree and echo all of you in terms of like, I wish that this kind of had like a Surgeon General warning, like seek out the source material. Don't take this as a documentary. Don't take this as history. Like, don't take this literally. This is a fan fiction version of history.
Absolutely.
I think it was
that's
like
a perfect description of it too.
Crystals from the read. It was like the minute that I saw that people of color were on here and they weren't playing slaves, I knew that this wasn't real life
fanfic.
Yeah.
She knew it wasn't historical.
Yeah. But I also want to point a little bit about the activist community, like in the social, the social thinkers amongst us, especially on social media, the concept of like holding up our creators of color and like holding them up to this like incredibly difficult, unfair, like sort of, you have to be perfect as a human being. And I feel like Lin-Manuel Miranda was like being raked over the coals and criticized over some of the stuff that like even his father has done as a political consultant and what have you. And it's like, first of all, I feel like I get it that I think everyone's desire for Hamilton to include everything and be absolutely perfect, include everyone, speaks to the necessity of more, of like the scarcity that that exists in terms of like representation and visibility. But it's also like, it's just like everyone was like, his father, like and I'm not going to say that he isn't infallible, because I feel that Lin-Manuel Miranda really shouldn't have put on the Hamilton production after Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, like that soon after. I feel like that was a decision that was ill thought of. I think he may have wanted to like be like, the show goes on and stuff like that, but I don't know. So, but
was it like because it was like a fundraiser for the arts, for the theater arts,
maybe something like that. But it was like he did it in the University of Puerto Rico, and they took over. Right. And I think the students wanted that space at that time, especially needed it because they were trying to rebuild and recover. And so, yeah,
it was poorly timed.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if y'all have any sort of recommended resources after this play. I happened to start watching Roots, the reboot of the Alex Haley on Hulu, and I thought it's actually a really great watch in terms of getting like a flip side about that same sort of era of time, told from slavery, told exclusively about slavery, and it's also a work of fiction too. So I feel like they're kind of like bookends to a certain extent, and I feel like it's raw. Like I haven't seen the original. I saw the 2016 version, but it's 5 parts. It's like 8 hours. It's very good. It's
this was original.
Watching. LeVar Burton makes a little cameo. Like he's like pushing a barrel
in the new room.
Yeah.
No way. Coulter.
Yeah.
Original Coulter.
Like a quick little 5 seconds or a cameo. It's like that's amazing. Anyway, so I recommend people watch that. That would be my recommendation. Does anyone have any sort of recommendations that they feel like they want to watch?
Yeah, I think they should read the book by Ron Chernow, the book that Lin-Manuel Miranda read to get his inspiration to write it.
He was a consultant, right? Like he was actually brought on the play,
right? And he still gets his chips for it. So, right. I'm sure he's secretly grateful to Lin-Manuel Miranda for bringing it to life and putting some coins in his pocket. Because I don't know anybody who would just be randomly picking up a book about Alexander Hamilton had it not been for this play. So he's like, yay, thank you. Thanks a lot. But yeah, read the book that the play was based upon. I think that will be a pretty solid resource, since that is the text that he used to get the ideas. Now, of course, some of the things are sensationalized in the play, but the book, the actual text, those things are true.
Yep.
So go, and it also, Google is free.
Right.
Google is free. You can Google Alexander Hamilton and find a whole bunch of books about it, I'm sure. Yes. Or articles or what have you.
Yep.
I think the PBS documentary that they did about Hamilton
Mm-hmm.
is really great, and it's interesting too because they talk to all of the actors and like about the complexities of them playing the founding fathers, and they get to go to like all of these historical sites in like DC and New York, and just kind of learn the history firsthand, and like also
Is that
taking
the one
into
called
account the complexity.
One Shot to Broadway? Is that what it's called? Hamilton
Um,
One Shot to Broadway? Something to that effect.
I'm not sure.
Is that the one?
It's totally like can't think of the title right now. I just remember it was on PBS, and it was like a big deal when it came out because it was like right around the time that they had started filming, or that they had filmed the what is now Hamilton. But it was like to kind of get people excited for that. And I was like, I'm already excited, but I will still watch. But yeah, I think that is just a really good look at comparing the art form versus the history, and getting to see like the actors talk about it. And Lin-Manuel Miranda like gets to go into like the history archives and like see some of Hamilton's letters, like first like the actual versions of them in like Hamilton's handwriting. It's so cool.
Coco?
We're talking about references
Or recommends the resources. I was like,
resources. I hate to echo Scarbie, but I would also say, anybody can Google anything.
yes.
And so I would say instead of in addition to watching fiction, look for the real stories. We don't look at any of the movies about Sally Hemings because they all romanticize this relationship with her and Jefferson. We all know that was BS. Don't look at any of those movies because those are all fiction. Read truly about Sally Hemings and what her life was, and see the real pictures about the small quarters she was kept in and how she was treated by Jefferson. And the story of Cinque, they made a movie, Amistad, about Cinque and the slaves who revolted. This is during the same period, right? Don't just go by the movie. I would say look up Cinque, look up who he is, what his people did. And that can give you a small glimpse into what our ancestors, our forefathers were actually thinking about slavery and about Black people during that time. It wasn't all about, we want to give them freedom, we want to free them. A lot of it was monetarily based and had a lot of other motives behind it. So that's what I would say.
And last but not least, hit me with your Hamilton astrological signs. Who is your sun? Who is your moon? And who is your rising of the cast?
Oh, shoot. I don't know enough about astrology to know what my rising and moon and all of that is.
I know. I'm gonna tell you mine. My sun is.
Do you want to explain what they are first, as you?
My sun sign.
Explain what the sun, rising, and moon are, as you explained.
I don't know.
Yours. You don't.
No, I don't know.
Ma'am, how dare you?
Pass on the birth chart.
Let me do it then. They all represent facets of your personality. However, the sun is your overall one. Your moon is your inner sort of personality and how you think and how you perceive the world. And your rising is how the world perceives you.
Okay, so my sun would be... my overall will probably be somewhere between Hercules Mulligan, who's always ready to sort of pop off, with the with the energy, that's me with the Hercules Mulligan, and also kind of he kind of stands in the background a little bit, and he's listening. He's a listener because he's a spy, a secret spy. So if people are talking all around him and they don't know he's listening, but he's internalizing. That's kind of how I am. I like to listen. I do a lot of listening, regardless of how much I talk, but I do listen sometimes. So I'm internalizing, you don't think I hear you, but I hear you back there. And I hear everything you're saying. That's kind of like me, my Hercules Mulligan. My inner will probably be Hamilton because I do like to write, and I do have this issue with time and wanting to do a whole lot of things at the same time, and wanting to do a lot, and wanting to leave my mark on this planet in some way, shape, or form. How people see me, it could be, I don't know. I can't care how people see me, honestly. They might see me as an Aaron Burr. They might see me as a Hamilton. They might see me as a Lawrence, or maybe like a, I don't know. I can't call it. I don't know how people will probably see me. Maybe one of y'all can answer that for me since y'all on the outside looking in. I don't know. I don't have a thought for once.
You're very outgoing. I would almost be tempted to call you a Lafayette.
You know what?
You know she likes
I'll accept
that.
An energetic Lafayette.
You know she likes that.
I'm taking this horse by the reins of the red coast, ready for
No, you know what? You know what? Oh snap! Okay, well now I'm like second guessing it because you said it yourself on this very podcast about how you are a George Washington, how you
you know what? Wow, I am kind of like a George Washington in that one sort of scenario. I was like George Washington where I didn't want to. If I had stayed on running the network and not anyone else had taken over it, then it could have fallen apart if it's only one person in charge. Everybody has to have a chance to sort of be a leader. And that's why I said I was kind of like George Washington, because I was tired. And he was tired. He said, I've been doing this shit for 45 years. I'm done. Y'all got it now. Y'all good? We laid down the groundwork. We set all the rules. Y'all can take the reins, right? Cool. I'm going to go chill over here.
The big sister. Yeah, you are a total George Washington. I'm giving you that. So you are a George.
I'll take that.
Yeah, you're a George Ham? Or no, Hulk.
Yeah, I said Hamilton was my inner, and I said Hercules was my Hercules on again.
Overall, yeah, I love it. Okay, who's next? Coco, Punkie.
I think I got mine. So my normal astrology, I have the same sun and rising, Leo, and so I feel like you get what you see. So I'm gonna follow that pattern for this, and I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of Hamilton qualities, and just like kind of his drive and like just doing things. I love to write,
serving the people.
Yeah, and then I feel like my moon sign would be Eliza, because it's just like I feel like she's like very sweet and like so focused on her family, but also like so strong. So like I feel like I hope to be an Eliza.
Yes. So a double hammy with an Eliza on the inside. Awesome. Coco, you ready or should I go?
I think I would probably say so. Like who I relate most to would probably be Lorenz, because I'm ready to fight. I'm always ready to fight.
That's what I'm talking about.
Always ready to fight. And I may crash and burn and fall into a pit of fire, but I was ready to fight. And so I'd say probably Lorenz. But then my moon, my inner would probably be Eliza, trying to be devoted and keep all my stuff together, my family, and very, very forgiving sometimes to my own detriment. And maybe I think, and then what was the last one?
So it's your sun, your moon, and your rising. Yeah,
probably King George. People think I'm crazy. A little bit of a dictator.
All right.
Don't kill my friends and family. Don't kill my friends.
I'm just saying, I told you so, though.
If it
I do say that a lot. I say I told you so a lot. Like, I warned you. I told you so.
You may be back.
You'll be back.
Yes. So I feel like I think Angelica is my sun sign. That sort of like never be satisfied and sort of like sacrificing yourself for loved ones, like putting them before me, but also super intelligent, super with it, just her own woman. So I think that she's my son. Exactly. And Burr is my moon. That I feel like I felt like so like identified with Burr, like, like to the Hamiltons of my world. Like I just want to do good and I just want to like be smart and like be prepared and like do all the things and still like screw the pooch somehow. Like in the end, you know what I mean? Like he made him so sympathetic that I see a lot of Burr. And my rising, who is my rising? I don't know. I feel, I'm not sure who my rising is. Maybe
and Peggy.
Peggy.
And Peggy.
And Peggy. And Peggy.
No, I'm just kidding.
And Peggy. I don't know. No, I don't know. I feel like
You might be like a Hamilton because he's the one that brought everybody together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're doing that. You know.
Thank you, y'all.
Right now, and you do this with your voice and with your platform, with your podcast. You're bringing people together.
I definitely speak out.
Did.
Thank you. All right, I'll take it. I'm Hamilton. I love it. Yeah, dope. Okay, so y'all, thank you so much. This was a blast.
Thank you for inviting me.
This was amazing. I'm so happy that we were able to make it work and that we had such a fruitful conversation. I mean, we could have talked about
to tag y'all in all my Hamilton stuff from now on. You're gonna get a litany of tags from me. They're all gonna be Hamilton related. So you're gonna have to deal with it.
And we didn't even get to talk about like the bullet and like
the bullet.
Y'all heard about the bullet, right?
Yeah, I heard about the bullet.
That like blew my mind. The bullet. That was.
It's an article. I'll tag you in it.
You haven't heard about the bullet? Who hasn't heard about the bullet?
Send it to us. I don't know.
Wow, it's this dancer who's like the representative of death. And then once you like recognize her and see her, she has like curly hair and like an updo. You see her like following. We're about to die. Her. Yeah.
Oh, shoot! Because she carries the bullet too at the very end.
Yeah,
the bullet.
I love that. So good.
That's so brilliant. That's like an Easter egg in there. I'm gonna watch it again tonight.
And if you think about like that whole slow-mo, that's very The Matrix. Like he's such a millennial. He's such an exennial.
I just stand. I forever stand. We have no choice but to stand.
I cannot. Like how? How could I ever not stand?
Why are you so good, Lin-Manuel Miranda? Why are you so good?
Real. Anyway, thank you again. This was dope.
Thank you.